So, hello everyone. Welcome back to our series on motivation and decision making. In this conversation, I'm honored to continue my discussion with Jacque Eccles, one of the leading scholars behind stated expectancy value theory. In our previous discussion, we explored the foundation of the theory, how motivation is shaped by expectancies for success and subjective task value. Today, we're going to focus the most powerful and foundation question in human behavior. Can I do this? Dr. Eccles, thank you again for being here.
I'm delighted.
Thank you. To begin, I would like to focus on expectancies for success.
Okay.
So, in stated expectancy value theory, you emphasize the importance of expectancies for success. Could you explain what you mean by expectancies and why are they central to motivation?
Well, expectancies are the beliefs that individuals have about whether or not they can complete a task successfully. And evidence suggests that people don't want to do things they think they're going to fail at. So they prefer tasks that they think they're going to be successful at. So this is key. We would argue that it's probably the first question a person asks themselves when they think about doing a task is, well, can I do it? And that's not enough because you can do lots of things. So that's why we have subjective task value that I think we'll talk about later in another video. But expectancies for success in classic theories is simply this belief that I can do it. Now, it can range from a large expectancies regarding a very large long-term goal, such as a career choice or perfecting a particular skill, like becoming a great violinist or a great soccer player, or becoming a mathematician or an engineer. Or it can have to do with, well, do I think I'm going to get the next question right on a test? Or if you're going in, for example, students in the United States take what we call the SAT in order to get into college. And it can be about that. How well will I do on this test? And we know that people that are confident that they can do well typically do better than people who have doubts.
Wow. So would you say expectancies are more domain specific or more general belief about ability?
Well, we separate theoretically between expectancies, which are more concrete, and
Mm,
self-concepts of ability.
mm,
And we believe that self-concepts of ability are more permanent general beliefs. They're still task specific, but it would be like, I think I'm good at math.
mm,
I think I'm good at sports.
mm,
I think I'm good at music.
mm,
Now, it can be much more specific when you say, well, how well do I think I'll do today
mm,
on the exam I'm going to take
mm,
in physics or in mathematics? Or how well am I going to do when I have to play a violin concerto for my instructor?
mm,
So, self-concept of ability we see as the more fundamental
mm,
belief
mm,
from which a person derives a prediction
mm,
about how well they're going to do.
mm,
And that prediction tends to be more focused
mm,
on the immediate short-term environment that one is in.
mm, mm,
So that's more. There's lots of names for these constructs. So
mm,
Bandura refers to them as self-efficacy.
mm,
And he also makes this distinction. He talks about there are expectant self-efficacy as a broad belief
mhm,
or self-efficacy meaning one's prediction for success on the very next problem that one takes on a test. So it
Mm.
can be quite micro or it can be quite major.
Even that was the next question I wanted
I,
to understand. How
yeah.
expectancies for success are similar to self-efficacy, or how is different from self-efficacy of Bandora.
Well, they're not different. So they're different terminologies. They grew out of different theoretical histories.
Mm.
So Bandura was doing his work on self-efficacy. At the same time, I was doing my work on expectancies and values.
Mm.
And before that, there was locus of control. So a more general phenomena construct was
Mm.
locus of control, and that was I think Roeder's concept. I would have to check that to be sure. But Bernie Weiner talked a lot about expectancies for success are absolutely critical, or
Mm.
locus of control is absolutely critical, and that expectancies are part of this idea of locus of control. I can do it,
Mm.
or I can't do it, or someone's going to stop me from doing it. So these are general beliefs that have had many different names by different theoreticians. So
Mm.
I wish we would reach a point where we all came up with the same names, but we didn't because we came from different theoretical traditions. But I think in principle, they're the same idea.
Oh, I see. So your research shows that these beliefs are not fixed. They develop over time. Could
Yes.
you help us to walk through how expectancies for success evolve from childhood until adolescence?
Sure. So again, we need to be thinking about two different things. So what we know from our data is that young children, and by this I mean preschool age children, 0 to age 6, for example, are very optimistic. They think they can do anything. And for most part, there are some kids who already at this age are having doubts, but on average, the kids seem to be quite optimistic. And we showed this in some early research where we actually manipulated feedback. And so we would have kids do puzzles, and the
Mm.
puzzles were either solvable or not, but we told them they were solvable. So the kids all thought they were solvable. And then we would give them feedback, and we would give them so long to finish it. And then we would tell them, well, you got them all right, or you did a really good job. Or we would tell them, no, you didn't finish, and other people do finish. So we would give them information that was either we were trying to convey that they hadn't succeeded or they
Mm.
had.
Mm.
And up to about 6 years of age, it didn't matter what you said. The kids continued to have very high expectations. So we would ask them, well, how do you think you're going to do on the next one?
Mm.
And they would say, oh, I'm going to do great. Then we would give them failure information.
Mm.
How do you think you're going to do on the next one? Oh, I'm going to do great.
Mm.
By 8, that changes. So
Mm.
somewhere between 5 and 8, they start with lower expectancies, so they're more cautious
Mhm.
and they're more responsive to feedback. So
Mm.
if you give them success feedback, their expectancies go up. If you give them failure feedback, their expectancies for the next task go down.
Mm.
So as kids get older, they tend to be more cautious until they know more about the task, and
Mm.
then they're very responsive to success and failure information. Now,
Mm.
I think this also happens anytime someone is learning a new task.
Okay, that means young children, they can be very confident. Then over time, they can start to be cautious to the point.
Right, right. And I think that's because they've had more experience
Mhm.
with failure as they get older,
Mhm.
and their mind is integrating information better.
Mm.
So young children tend to focus on the very last piece of information they got,
Mm.
and they tend to be very optimistic in the area of achievement.
mm,
And you put those two things together, and they don't appear to accumulate information as
mm,
rapidly as older children do. And
mm,
and we believe that that has something to do with the brain, with the way their brain is wired and the accumulation of experience. So it's both things. It's the accumulation of experience and the maturity of their cognitive processes.
yeah.
And both of those things change over time.
Oh, I see. As you are still even talking about it, when it comes, for example, uh, how experiences such as success, failure, and feedback from taking example from teacher or parents. So can you talk more how it can shape individuals' expectancies over time?
Yes. So we think that expectancies, and Bandura believes the same thing. So I think that's where the theories become quite so Bandura's social cognitive theory and expectancy value theory are quite similar. Is that experience is the best informant. So as children try things and as adults try new things, we
Mm,
pay attention to how well we do and how much effort we had to put into the task. If it's easy to learn, we develop confidence quickly, but we also get bored. So
mm,
if we think we're absolutely sure we can succeed, that's not necessarily the what you want, because then succeeding becomes boring
mm,
and there's no challenge to it.
mm,
So an optimum and I'm hesitating here because I'm putting together lots of ideas. As kids and novices, so let me use the word novices. As children and novices have more experience with the task, they develop a more accurate sense of how well they're going to do based on how well they've done in the past. Now, children and people in general are also told things by the people around them.
mm,
So if they are in a culture that values competitive success,
mhm,
they're going to be getting lots of praise and lots of opportunities to do tasks and get better. So
mm,
this is where the cultural environment and the situation that you're in begin to have an effect. So
mm,
we know that parents vary in the confidence they have in their children's ability to do different tasks.
mm,
It's not completely accurate. The parents' views of their children are usually biased in
mm,
favor of their children, but we know that children whose parents have more confidence in them do better in the long run.
mm,
Even if we could measure their actual ability, it seems to be highly valuable to them to have parents who have high confidence in their children's abilities.
mm,
Now, parents will also vary depending on the domain about how they think about their children. So, gender is a very good example of this.
mm,
If parents believe girls and boys have different abilities, and
mm,
we've looked at this in our studies, so
mm,
it is the case that parents, even before their children start studying something,
mm,
they have expectancies for how well their children will do, and
mm,
those depend upon their child's sex. So
mm,
parents, on average, of boys think their child will do better in sports, will do
mm,
better in math, and will do better in science than parents of girls.
mm,
This will give boys an advantage because
mm,
they will then enter tasks that are
mm,
in sports
mm,
or in math and science with greater self-confidence starting in a very, very young age.
mm,
So that's the way that culture gets into this process. So
mm,
parents have stereotypes
mm,
about their children that are informed by cultural beliefs
mm,
about children.
mm,
So they also have information looking at their children in a variety of situations. So they
mm,
also are developing ideas about their children as they watch them.
mm,
So, and this is true for teachers as well. So, what we find, for example, in some of our, I don't know how much you want me to go into detail, but we find, for example, in our data, that parents tend to be more optimistic about their children than teachers, and
mm.
children are more likely to believe their parents than their teachers
Oh, I see.
up till the end of elementary school. So if you look at longitudinal data, where are the children's self-concepts and expectancies coming from? They're
Mm,
being influenced more by their parents than
mm.
by their teachers.
Okay,
Now,
that's where you talk about how culture and social they can influence how people they evaluate their own ability.
mhm. Well, just like parents are affected by these stereotypes,
Mm,
children are, and they
mm,
learn them very young. So
mm,
there's a lot of studies now in Western countries.
mm,
So all of Europe and Australia and the United States and Canada, that children from a very young age, so like 3 or 4 years old,
mm,
know what the society thinks about differences in men and women.
mm,
And they do apply that to themselves.
mm,
And in part, that seems to reflect their desire to be the best
mhm,
boy or girl
mm,
that they can be.
mm,
So they're already being shaped in their goals and their perceptions of their ability by the
mm.
culture that they're in from a very young age.
I see.
Now, this changes as they get older. So, as they get more information about themselves, as they see more boys and girls
Mm,
engaged in activities, they
mhm.
will develop their views of gender will begin to be less stereotyped.
Okay, I see. Wow.
So, but what's interesting is right around puberty,
Mm-hmm.
they get more rigid again.
Wow.
So when kids get into high school,
Mm-hmm.
sex becomes a big deal
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know about sex. So they
Mm-hmm.
go back to the stereotypes
Mm-hmm.
and they start acting like the idealized men and women in their culture.
Mm,
So you'll start seeing it in what they wear. You'll start seeing it in what they do with their free time. And
mm,
it goes into their expectancies. So when they go to a new math course,
mm-hmm.
girls will have a lower perception of their abilities than boys. Just
Mm.
a second. We can take this again.
Okay.
So as they go into adolescence, they become very interested in sex and in
Mm,
sex roles and how to get along with people of the opposite sex. So
mm,
you again see sort of these stereotypes
mm.
around abilities, and it begins to affect. Now it's going to affect things like career choice,
Yeah.
optional courses,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Coming back to the career, so when it comes to expectancies and decision making, how do expectancies for success directly influence the choices people make, like such as selecting field of study or pursuing any career?
Well, I certainly someone would be ill-advised to
Mm,
pick a career they think they will fail at.
yeah.
Now, some people do that, but it represents a psychological problem. So one would hope that we would give them more accurate information
Mm,
about what they can actually succeed at and what they can fail at.
mm,
But we know that kids form ideas. So teenagers have ideas about the adult work world,
mm,
which is very limited. I mean, we don't do a good job in our culture or in
mm,
any culture teaching kids about the range of occupations they could go into,
mm,
despite the fact that that's probably one of the most important decisions they will make for their
mm,
lives.
mm,
And they form stereotypes about those occupations and
mm,
what is needed to succeed.
mhm,
And if they don't believe they can succeed, they won't do it, or we would recommend that they don't do it, and most don't.
mm,
Now, the question will be, Should they do something that's very difficult and will take a lot of effort? Or
mm,
should they do something that is simple that they know they will succeed at?
mm,
And here's where expectancies become especially interesting.
mm,
So, what motivation would tell you is that it's not, well, we have to go step back for a minute and say there are people who want to be very successful and
mm,
people who don't. So,
mm,
this is, or they're not motivated by being very successful. So, this is where the values come in. But we'll talk about that in another session. So,
mm.
but keep in mind that they're very important. These two things do not operate independent of each other.
I see.
But for expectancies, what we find is that people don't typically go into things they think they can't succeed at. So
Mm,
things that they think are very hard,
mm,
or they don't go into things that are very easy because they would think that would be boring. So they
mm,
pick something in the middle that is challenging, will take a lot of work, but
mm,
they will feel very good about succeeding because
mm,
it's challenging. It's worth their effort. It's
mm,
worth the time that they're going to put in to be successful. So
mm,
they're confident they can succeed if they work hard
mm,
and they are willing to work hard. Now,
mm,
being willing to work hard depends a lot on what else you have to do with your life. So
mm.
that's where the values become very important.
Wow. So, when it comes to practice, what practical strategies can like educators, leaders, development practitioners use to strengthen people's expectancies for success?
Okay, there are a few things that people can do, and these come from other theories
Mhm.
to support high expectancy. So what we would hope is that schools would make kids believe that they can succeed if they work hard.
Mm,
So this is Carol Dweck's idea of mindfulness, that
mm,
children should be focusing more on if I work hard, I can succeed,
mm,
than on, well, I can't succeed because it's hard.
mm,
So one thing that teachers can do is to keep them focused on mastery learning. So
mm,
to master something is to do something that's hard, but to work hard at it,
mm,
rather than focusing on performance, which
mm,
is competing and doing better than others. So this is goal theory that comes into being similar to SVET, situated expectancy value theory. But
mm,
what we want to do is to support kids' confidence in their ability to succeed if they work hard. And then we also want to make it worth their while. So that means you've got to do interventions both on expectancies and on um, values at the same time.
mm.
I'm sorry, my nose is itching.
Oh, that's fine.
So it's very important to have a dual focus if you're
Mm,
talking about intervention. The same thing would be true in a workplace. It's
mm,
very important that employers
mm,
set up the job place
mm,
where people will feel like they can succeed,
mm,
and that the workplace will give them the time to develop the skills that are needed to be successful, so
mm,
that the environment, the situation, is a
mm,
situation that supports the
mm,
idea that I can succeed if I have time, if I work hard, and I have the supports I need to work hard.
mm. Wow. So I think we have many things we can talk about the expectancy, but if there is one key message you'd like researchers and practitioners to understand about expectancy for success, what would it be?
Well, I've already said the important thing is that people continue to believe they can succeed, but I also believe we need to understand why they don't believe that.
Mm,
Sometimes this is part of the cost dimension under subjective test values. Sometimes there are just too many barriers,
Mm,
and the people don't want to try it because there are too many barriers,
mm,
even if they think they could succeed in an optimal situation.
mm,
So if we want to intervene with a particular person, we need to ask them, what is it that makes you not want to do this? And
mm,
if they say, well, I can't do it, then you
mm,
can have a discussion about, well, why do you believe that?
mm,
And this is where Bernie Weiner talked about attribution theory. How they explain it becomes very important for
mm,
how you intervene on it.
mm,
So if they say, I'm stupid, then you have to work on making them not believe that, changing their mind. And probably that's best done by giving them a series of tasks that start simple and increase in difficulty in a systematic manner to show them that they can succeed and they can do it as it gets harder.
mm,
The other thing is to talk to them about focusing on improvement rather
mm,
than comparing themselves to others.
mm,
Now, if it's that they don't have the tools, then
mm,
what we need to do is to get them the tools. So
mm,
find out what tools are needed, and this is where the situation is very important. A school with minimal resources may
mm,
not be able to provide the child with the tools that they need to be successful. Now,
mm,
Bernie Weiner would say that, well, then they're attributing it to task difficulty or to lack of support.
mm,
And if that's what they're saying, and that's a realistic assessment on their part, that could be that's very real,
mm,
then no matter how much we tell them to work harder, it's not going to work. We're going to have to say, ah, yes, well, you need these things to be successful, and you
mm.
need this instruction to be successful. I'm now going to give you those things.
Wow. So, Jack, someone maybe who want to know more about the straightened expectancy value theory, uh, where they can look about more information materials. So, do you have any website they can get more information?
We Yes, we have a website, but there's also a lot of work being done by Alan Wigfield and his students on actual intervention. So
Mm,
there are a lot of interventions now
mm,
out there. And if you go and look up Alan Wigfield and you go and look up his students, you'll be able to reach his students through looking at his website. You'll find more about interventions. We also talk a lot about interventions in our new book.
mm.
So I'm going to make that book available on my website in its current version, and so people could go and find the information there as well. So our website is GARP dot education dot e just a minute UCI. So GARP dot education dot UCI, and in there you'll find a lot of material.
Okay, UCI is the University of California.
at at
Al-
Irvine.
Okay, thank you
Yeah.
so.
So
So,
that's where it sits. I mean, that's where the website is.
yeah. Thank you so much. That was good to have this conversation to understand the expectancy. So we shall continue more other series talking about subjective values. Thank you.
Okay.